Let's talk about the Raiders versus Broncos, Mike. How is the tank going?
It got more promising. I mean, the big news out of this game is that Gardner Minshew broke his collarbone. And it's always those plays where they land right on their shoulder, and there's just a little bit of weight put down on it by the defender, and it didn't even look that bad, but it was just quick, and all of a sudden he's holding his collarbone, and he's not moving his arm, and you know what happened.
Yep.
So as of right now, Desmond Ridder is the starting quarterback
over O'Connell.
Oh, well, he's hurt. IR.
He's hurt.
Yeah, I want to say he's out at least like 6 weeks with his broken thumb. I don't know. I don't remember exactly which game that happened in, but I would assume he'll still be out for a couple of weeks, which leads me to the realization that I had literally a couple minutes ago, which is there's probably a pretty high likelihood the Raiders go for Daniel Jones. I mean, he's the only guy on the market that makes sense, and probably because of his contract with the Giants, he could probably sign for pretty cheap because he's still getting paid by the Giants, similar to Russell Wilson with the Steelers. So I can see Daniel Jones to the Raiders for sure. And I don't know if he would only sign for like the remainder of the season just to try to get some snaps in, on a different team. Like I highly doubt with the position the Raiders are in that they'd want to give him a long-term deal. And I feel like he'd probably want to hit the market next year anyways. So it could just be like a remainder of season type of thing. And then if they like him, they could try to keep him. But, if they're going to be in the position, which I hope they are, to be picking top 3, which they currently are, they should be going for a quarterback in the draft. Which, speaking of, let's see, according to tankathon.com, the Raiders are currently sitting at 3rd overall in a 3-way tie with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who currently have the 1st overall pick, and the New York Giants at 2-9. And I think New England won today. The Panthers almost won today, but they have 3 wins. Tennessee won today. And on Thursday, Cleveland won against Pittsburgh. Those are 3 teams that were in the tie with us. So it was a 6-way tie. I could be wrong on New England, but regardless, like some of those teams that the Raiders needed to win, they won this week. Go ahead.
So right now, let's talk about the teams that are currently ahead of the Raiders. I think it's no surprise that the Giants are going to be drafting a quarterback. That's what they're going for. Right now, the Raiders are in a race for that, obviously to get the 1st overall pick. But Jacksonville right now, they are the tricky team because I don't think are going to be in the market to draft a quarterback. But they might trade that pick away because you can get a lot for the 1st overall pick.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if this were the draft order at the end of the season, I could see a scenario where the Raiders trade up 2 picks. I just don't know what they have to give up to do that. Like, they did get a 3rd-round pick for Devontae.
Yeah.
So you could throw that in there, I guess. And then probably like at least one more pick. Hopefully nothing, like no 1st-round picks, but it's the 1st overall pick, so you might have to, and I wouldn't, I get it. Hey, it's the quarterback. Like, if you think he's the guy, and, if Tom Brady, I know there was a report that Tom Brady's going to have over 90%. Let me try to term this correctly. But it was from Diana Rossini. I said that right.
Real quick, while you pull that up, let me get to a couple comments. Amin the Dream, welcome back. Amin, appreciate you checking out the show. Says, Raiders and teams like the Raiders or Bears hired bad offensive coordinators like Getsy and Waldron, who got fired by previous teams the season before, yet they still got hired. Makes no sense to me. So here's the thing, at least in the Raiders case, about them hiring Getsy, that was not their first choice. They tried to hire Cliff Kingsbury, and he backed out to go to Washington. So the Raiders kind of had to settle at offensive coordinator. And they got obviously not a good solution, not a good fit.
Yeah.
You pulled up something?
Yeah. So I mean, this is on Yardbarker, but this is I believe per Diana Rossini of The
Yep.
Athletic. Tom Brady's involvement in running the Raiders it will be closer to 90%.
Closer to 90%. That's great news for Raider fans. It's got to be something different.
Yeah. Let's see if I'm just trying to read this to see if there's anything.
Meanwhile, while you're checking that out, go ahead.
Oh, I know. All I'll say is I know the other thing that was notable from that was just that he will have a big hand in helping the Raiders, make their decision at quarterback moving forward, which obviously goes in towards drafting a quarterback. And the interesting aspect is potentially developing him. That's what I'm really intrigued by is like once we get that quarterback, like because he's a part owner, like can he just like he could just be at the practice field every time or every game or every week? Can he help develop the quarterback like on a daily basis? I doubt he has the time for that, but man, that'd be really interesting, wouldn't it? And the other thing I'll say about that right now is just I've come to the understanding that he really does have, to one extent or another, a good relationship with Shadur Sanders as far as already kind of helping and training him and working with him. So if that's the case, like that's a pretty
I don't
that's
think
a
he
pretty
can continue
obvious
doing that. I don't think it's in line with the rules now that he's a part owner. I don't think he can continue with that because that would be
maybe.
sort of that would be collusion.
Maybe. Yeah, at that point then maybe he's stopped since he got approved as an owner.
Probably.
But that at least gives you a pretty obvious like chances are it's that guy sort of vibe, Yeah. And then of course the hilarious, thank God tweets every time the Raiders lose a game from Shadur Sanders, which I fucking love. I think that's hilarious. And again, if he is to be the quarterback, all that matters to me is if he plays good, develops well, and wins. I don't like if he's not my favorite choice going to the draft, like, hey, it is what it is. I'm not in control here, so I got to just hope for the best. But that all being said, all that was coming out of the Gardner Minshew injury, which again, unless Daniel Jones comes in here and rejuvenates his career, as of right now, it looks like this is because of their quarterback situation. It's them and the Giants, really. And then, the Jaguars, I think Trevor Lawrence is hurt to the point where he might not even return this season. Am I wrong?
Probably not. They'll probably shut him down. Yeah.
So, those are the three teams at the top of the draft, and they are the obvious top three teams as far as, in the worst position. And I don't know. I hope the Giants sneak out a couple wins. I hope the Raiders don't, which I think with Gardner Minshew, what's his name? Why am I? Damn, quarterback from Arizona.
Kyler?
No, on the Raiders. Desmond Ridder. With Desmond Ridder at quarterback, I don't think they're going to be winning many games, moving forward. And then they have a matchup with the Jaguars, Week 16. That's going to be huge. Actually, the final 3 weeks of the season are pretty interesting. It's going to be Jaguars, race for first overall pick, Saints, matchup against Derek Carr, and then final game of the season, Chargers. It's whatever, but it might be huge for the Chargers. But hopefully they're not resting starters or something,
Yeah.
But anyways.
Real quick, I do want to focus. I do see a lot of comments. I have a lot highlighted so I can get to them. But I want to focus on the Raider ones. Frank says the Raiders need a new coach more than Frisco does, and obviously I'll get to the Niner comments after we're done talking about the Raiders.
They need a complete coaching overhaul.
Will says, "Yo, my guys, Will, welcome back.
Will, welcome.
We are cooked." He's talking about the Niners. like I said, we'll get to that.
We are all
well, I
cooked.
guess, yeah, we are all cooked. Daniel Jones wouldn't make any difference, to be honest, at least this season. I will say he could make a difference in a negative way if he comes in for the Raiders and he's trying to prove himself as a starter and messes around and wins a game. That would make a difference in a negative way for the Raiders. They just have to take their medicine.
Especially with his mobility, but also I would mostly agree with Joel here just because he would need to come in and learn the playbook. So if they started him day one, like they'd be running out there with a pretty basic playbook for him if I had to guess. And they can't run the fucking ball. They still cannot run the ball. So I don't see it. Like even with him at quarter, like chances are it won't make a difference. I agree.
Let's see here. Fonzie says, I didn't see the Raiders versus Broncos game, but I know we're both in the same boat, Mike.
Yeah, I was just rooting for a loss.
Yeah. All right. Amin the Dream says, Josh, the jacket is fire. I appreciate it. You know, I love this jacket. It fits perfectly. And yeah, you know, it's pretty comfy, keeps me warm. And, you know, in the midst of getting, you know, my team getting their ass kicked, I at least was warm, unlike the players on the field who had their hands in the hands warmer. Shout out to Fonzie. Let's see here. Already got to that one. Raiders need 129%. Honestly, they need Jesus.
They need a lot of things.
Fonzie says, Mike, you said AZ, which is Kyler.
Yeah, I meant from Arizona, as in Desmond Ridder used to play from Arizona.
The university.
Recently. No, he went to Cincinnati. I meant Arizona as in the Cardinals. Just the fact that Ridder
was on the Falcons.
And then he was traded to the Cardinals.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Fonzie adds baby Jesus. The Raiders need baby Jesus. So
the Raiders need Al Davis to step into the Lazarus pit.
Let's go ahead and talk about the Raiders versus Chiefs, and then I'll get to those final Niner comments that I wasn't able to get to. And then before we get to
the Chiefs, I don't really want to talk about too many players. Just Jacoby Myers had a good game, 10 catches, 121 yards. Trey Tucker had a good game, 7 catches, 82 yards. Brock Bowers was covered by Pat Surtain in this game, which is very interesting. The fact that maybe some teams might choose to start covering Bowers as the top receiver, just, man cover that guy with your best corner. Clearly it worked because Bowers only had 4 catches for 38 yards. One play I want to talk about was the fake punt where AJ Cole threw a completion to Divine Diablo, of all people, for 34 yards. It's awesome. It's hilarious. They still lost the game, so I love that shit. Michael Mayer returned. Wait, you know what? I'm sorry. I think he returned last week, and I just didn't mention on the podcast, but it's nice that Michael Mayer is back. Desmond Ridder, when he took over, he lost a fumble immediately, and that pretty much put a nail in the game for the Raiders. And then on defense, DeCam Richardson, the rookie corner, led the team in tackles. Couple passes defended by DeCam, Jack Jones, Polamalu, Trevon Merrick, and a few others. Max Crosby kind of got back to his old usual self with 3 tackles for loss. But the guy who played the best on defense was actually Tyree Wilson. And it seems like this season, here and there, he's been getting, for lack of a better term, more consistent. And that's really good to see, especially, we don't know what's going to happen with Malcolm Kuntz. So, if Tyree Wilson can develop into that guy opposite Max Crosby, that'd be huge. But he had a sack and 2 tackles for loss in this game. And just moving forward, going into this offseason, the Raiders are going to have potentially top 3 cap space, potentially a top 3 pick in the draft. It'll be really interesting to see what this roster looks like next season. I don't. If I guess the last thing I'll say here is it'll just be interesting to see what they do with Tom Telesco, because if you get if you keep him, I don't even know if I would consider it a rebuild. It's really just a massive retooling at quarterback and probably coach, the entire coaching staff. You could call that a rebuild, I guess, but usually to me, a rebuild is like you start selling all the assets, which, hey, they traded Devontae Adams, but they're not going to trade Max Crosby. And to me, like, unless they do and they trade off a bunch of other young guys, like, say, a Nate Hobbs, who they need to re-sign, Trevon Merrick, who they need to re-sign. Like, if they let all these defensive players go in free agency this year, then it's going to start feeling like a rebuild. Like, oh, wow, they're really, like, redoing everything on defense besides Crosby. But if they keep most of those guys, then, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are we ready to move on to the Chiefs?
Yep.
All right. Real quick, Fonzie has a perfect comment. He says, "Why talk about the Chiefs when we know the outcome? Whether they play, whether they play straight up or whether they pay straight up. You know, I agree. We can kind of keep it brief. We know the Chiefs very well. We've talked about them several times, more times than I would want to talk about the Chiefs on this channel. Because, all right, let's just be honest. Besides Kansas City Chiefs fans, the Chiefs drive every single fan base nuts. Everybody wants to see them win. I will say they're like
Lose?
their stability, huh? The Chiefs.
Yeah. You said everybody wants to see them win.
Everybody wants to see them lose. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Oof. Maybe they paid me. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe they paid me to say that. No, but in all seriousness, the Chiefs are coming off a game where they had to really battle against one of the worst teams in the NFL in Carolina. And I don't know. I just had a feeling like going into that game that I honestly was like, the Panthers might upset the Chiefs when they play them. I texted that in the group chat. I have receipts of that. Okay, so don't think I'm pulling a LeBron right now where I was like, yeah, I just woke up this morning thinking, the Panthers were going to do something special. They didn't end up winning, but I don't know. There was something about that game where the Panthers were on an emotional high. Right now, the Raiders are just in full on tank mode, I think. And the Chiefs, they remember the Mahomes puppet in the offseason. This is going to be a Black Friday game televised on Netflix. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the Raiders messed around and won this game, but I just can't. I can't predict that. I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, once it hit me about 2.5 minutes ago when I realized that, oh, this is going to be a nationally televised game on a Friday night, the entire nation is going to be forced to watch Desmond Ridder versus the Chiefs defense. the Chiefs should kick our ass, but it might be closer than it should be. But the Chiefs will win.
They say Black Friday is, jam-packed full of deals and specials, but they also say you get what you pay for. So if this is the Black Friday game, hey, you're getting Desmond Ridder. And I mean, we can hope for a good football game. And, the Raiders are going to really put on a fight, Yeah, I got the Chiefs winning this game.
I want to look at something.
Yeah? What do you want to look at?
I want to look. Let's see. I want to look at the Giants' remainder of their schedule. So, okay. The Giants next week are going to Dallas. Then they have New Orleans. Then Baltimore, at Atlanta, Indianapolis, and finish the season against Philadelphia in Philly. Which, depending on how the season goes for the Lions and Philadelphia Eagles, Philly could be resting starters in that game. But regardless, I mean, Dallas, New Orleans the next 2 weeks, those are 2 winnable games for the Giants. Atlanta should beat them, but they haven't been exactly very, consistent this season. And then Indianapolis, I'd say a similar thing about them. Like, I wouldn't say the Giants can't beat them, you know. And then just for shits and giggles, why not look for the Jaguars as well? Let's see really quick, because I know obviously the Jags are playing the Raiders later this season, week 16, but they are coming out of the bye this week. This is week 12, right?
Yeah, we're headed on to week 13 now.
Yeah. So they're going to play Houston next week, then at Tennessee. That's a winnable game. New York Jets, at this point, winnable game. Week 16, Vegas. Week 17, Tennessee again. And then Indianapolis to finish the season. So, I mean, depending on how Trevor Lawrence, his injury goes, they have a lot of winnable games to finish out the season. And I mean, the Jags and Titans beating up on each other is big too, just in case the Raiders get a win down the road. They could possibly each beat each other once and keep themselves behind the Raiders. But man, I just want two things at this point. I just want Brock Bowers to break the fucking records, and I want the first overall pick,
which he has been doing. He now has the most receptions out of any Raider rookie, right?
Yep. He passed Amari Cooper's record, and he is, dude. He's going into this weekend. He was on pace for like 115 catches. That's insane for a wide receiver.
My prediction has come to fruition where I said, I mean, it wasn't like the hottest take, but hey, the quarterbacks are going to hold this team back and Brock Bowers is going to ball out. And everybody in the offseason is going to be saying, hey, we need to get a quarterback for Brock Bowers. It had it written all over it. And maybe like I'm taking credit for something that people could have seen a mile away, but yeah. Fonzie says, fight who? I'm still trying to figure that one out. I don't have anything snarky. Raiders are just going to have to put up a fight to sell tickets. And yeah, to me, give me Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes over the Raiders tandem of Antonio Pierce and Desmond Ridder.
I know the Raiders beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead last year, but I think the intensity and the vibes with Antonio Pierce last year were much different, and of course the quarterback was different. And I don't think that's happening again this year. I think the Chiefs are going to, get it done at home.
And the Chiefs are really fighting to maintain that top seed in the AFC. They are trying to three-peat this year, and the Bills I think are currently at like 8-2 or 9-2. They're
not only fighting with like the Bills for the top seed, they're fighting the Chargers off for the division. Like, they're a couple sketchy losses away. I don't know what their schedule looks like, but I'm curious. I mean, do they face the Chargers again this year? I'm sure
they do.
I feel like they do.
Okay,
yeah. Let's see. Chiefs. This will be the last schedule I want to look at, and then we can get out of here.
Okay. After taking your guys' comments, I do have them starred, the bookmarked ones that I want to get through, and if any come in, we definitely always appreciate you guys coming in and adding to our show.
So obviously they have Vegas on Friday, then they have the Chargers, and that is also in Kansas City. Then at Cleveland, which that should be a win. Houston, Pittsburgh, Denver to finish the season.
Can you repeat that?
Vegas, Chargers, Cleveland, Houston, Pittsburgh, Denver.
That's a pretty tough schedule for the Chiefs going forward. This is a must-win for them right now if they want that top seed.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You are picking the Raiders. You really want them to win?
And
on Netflix, because it's on Netflix, right?
Right.
All right.